Just in our pre-panel discussion, I was reflecting on the fact that there's a positioning opening up at the White House in November. Now, what are the skill sets that that candidate will need to run the country? Well, what are the skill sets that MBAs will need for the job market? Not just this year, but 2027, I guess, viewers, if you're thinking about business school in the coming year, and beyond. What about 2037? Because, of course, the MBA will equip you for that first job as you come out of business school, but for every position that follows. And to discuss that, the skills that you might need and adapting to the job market, we've got a wonderful panel from many of the world's top business schools. It's a pleasure to welcome Heather Byrne. Heather is the Managing Director of the Career Development Office at Michigan Ross, joined by Michelle Rankin, who's the Senior Director of the Career Center at UVA Darden. Ed Bernier, a friend of Centre Court, back in his position as the Assistant Dean of the Daytime MBA Career Services at Duke Fuqua. He always makes sure that I get that pronunciation right. And Abigail Keese, who joins us from the Yale School of Management. Abigail is the Assistant Dean of Career Development. Heather, perhaps we start with that idea of preparing candidates for the job market. Tempting to think just about that first job coming out of the MBA, the investment of time and money that candidates have made, but you welcome them. They've been thinking about their career and the applications that they sent to Michigan Ross. How do you then sort of welcome them and say, okay, let's be open-minded to the endless opportunities that Ross graduates get to pursue?
And I think that's the balance that people have to find is you want to be open-minded, but you also have to be focused in order to be prepared for your future. We know that people come here to make a career pivot. And so that's an important part of what they're thinking about and motivated for. And so I think at Ross, we do a really good job of helping people early on in the process, starting in March before they even step foot on campus, to think about those opportunities and to make sure they're assessing what their strengths are, what their interests are, balancing that with what the market is doing and what's ready for them. We want them to be thinking about what's right in front of them, but also career readiness for their life. And, Michigan Ross, we hang our hat on action-based learning so that they can really hone the skills that they're bringing into the program and transfer those into the career that they're looking into. And how do they articulate that to recruiters as they're thinking about their long-term and short-term career prospects? So that approach really helps us make students ready for whatever's happening in the market, in addition to leveraging like the amazing Michigan and Michigan Ross network that's out there, which is really key to recruiting. So that's a big part of how we help students get ready, and it works no matter what the market's doing, 2027 or 2037.
Michelle, as you welcomed, I guess, the new intake a few weeks ago in Charlottesville, I mean, you know that they're about to be faced with, what, 320, 330 cases over the next 2 years of their experience at Darden. So with that welcome and what they're about to experience, I mean, you know that this is going to be a chance for what, exploration, a real personal journey.
Absolutely. And coming to Darden is not for the faint of heart. It is certainly very challenging, but the thing that our students love is looking at problems holistically, and that's going to help them for their first job out of Darden and down the road. Similarly, what Heather said, we spend a lot of time before students even start here at Darden. So we meet with everyone for a 1-hour virtual session to get a sense of what they're interested in, knowing that once they come to business school, as I'm sure all my colleagues here agree, they very well might change what they're interested in doing. And that's totally fine. The beautiful thing about an MBA is it does give you an opportunity to really explore different pathways, both for your summer in between your first and second year, for your first job, and frankly, for roles down along the way. And that's really just what our students are so eager to explore.
Right. This idea, Ed, of getting a head start and framing it within Team Fuqua, within your team, there's presumably a dialogue between the admissions colleagues and then career services as they're crafting the incoming class. Do you have much input, knowing the sort of qualities and the characteristics and culture of the school?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that admissions doesn't ask me who to admit. I certainly try to share insights around what's going on in the market to inform admissions on the kinds of qualities that are valuable both in the classroom experience as well as when people graduate on the job finding front. And similar to what my colleagues talked about here, there's a few areas that we've been focusing in on a lot the last few years that have been distinguishing students to be stronger in the job search. And those areas are around focus, ability to communicate, humility, and hustle. Those sound very straightforward and easy, but if you combine folks with those four strong characteristics to have strength in those areas, layer on some finance and marketing and statistics, you have a pretty lethal combination. So those are the four areas that I lean on and I communicate about a lot with admissions to make sure we can get the right class profile to put people in the best position.
Now, the combination of hustle and humility, from my accent and where I come from, and we queue for the bus, we queue for everything. Are those two compatible?
Yeah, for sure. You need to hustle if you want to win. On the humility side, this is an experience that's going to humble a lot of people in a lot of different ways. So when I talk about humility, it's the ability for one to keep one's own balance, both on the professional and personal side during their MBA experience. And so that's something that it sounds like a softer skill, but it's something that people are going to learn sometimes the hard way in business school, but that's something that's going to be important for them to be balanced in their search as well as in their experience here. So do I think they're incompatible? Not at all. I would say that this on the humility side, that could be something that the students are maybe facing a challenge in that they may have not faced before they got to their MBA experience.
Right. And Abigail, when Bruce and the admissions team excitedly tell you, oh, the diversity of the incoming class, we've got people with backgrounds in public service, renewable energy, banking, and the list goes on. And you're thinking, wow, like incredible diversity. Is that something that's exciting to you rather than daunting?
Absolutely. They all bring, I mean, that means that they're all going to learn from each other and they're all going to be able to add more to their classroom discussions, but also add more to their career searches and exploration and help each other really learn what's out there and what can people do and how do people do it and how do people make a life doing it. Also, just to build on what Ed was saying, I don't care where people are coming from. I think that mixture really does make everybody stronger. It makes the class stronger. It also makes each individual in the class stronger. But the grit that they bring is always really what has the stars rise to the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's
now,
wherever you're coming from, really put whatever you're going to put into it and bouncing back and bouncing forward.
Yeah, and really leveraging that. Now, a Centre Court event that we might have held 10 years ago, Heather, I'm not sure that we'd have been talking about AI, and yet the Nobel Prize winners announced today, that's what they did their research in. When you think about current industry trends and that action-based learning, that these are going to be pragmatic skills that you will then be able to use in your future career. What do you see in some of those trends and what it might then mean for graduates that will be coming out of school in the next 2-3 years?
Yeah, I think like any trend, I think it's a matter of how you utilize and leverage that trend. I keep saying that like AI isn't going to take your job, but people who know how to use AI might take your job. So it's just like anything. We might have talked about, the computer 40 years ago or the typewriter 60, 70, 80 years ago. But I think the key is being inherently curious and adaptable and staying on top of those trends. That's what's going to be most important. And when I talk to recruiters, they want people who understand how they learn, and they want people who can come in and be able to quickly pick up on things. And that requires you to know how you learn. And you learn your own learning style by being put in a situation where things are not easily understood. So there's a lot of ambiguity and you have to figure it out. So I think that's one thing that I know our MBA program does a great job in. I think a lot of our MBA programs do that. It's our programs are intentionally set up to throw you off. And when you're in that situation and you're forced to make sense of things, then you quickly have to learn to survive. That's what our programs are set up to do. And when you do that, then you get muscle memory of how to make sense of things, and that puts you at an advantage for any kind of trend that comes your way. And AI is a very hot topic. It's a valid topic. It's really important, but I always try and remind students that it's important to know how to use it. You don't necessarily have to understand everything behind the scenes. And I think that when you say that, that kind of lowers their shoulders a little bit and it gets them more excited about it. And if you're excited, you're curious, and it gives you that motivation to learn about it a little bit more and then leverage it, which puts you at a greater advantage.
Staying with the theme, Michelle, of curiosity and the excitement, the willingness to learn and to grow when you arrive at Darden, is that something that you're very mindful we're going to work with that in the candidate and sort of hold up a mirror perhaps to some of their background, accomplishments, experience, and where they can take it next?
Absolutely. Curiosity is just so important, just to kind of move ahead and learn from each other as well as learning from faculty. I think cold call, which is basically if we were in this room together, I would just call on someone. You're not necessarily raising your hand. I think that helps you build the muscle memory of being able to state your position and defend it even without complete information necessarily. And that's just such a good skill to have. I think that makes our students better leaders because they are willing to listen, absorb information, and then make their case. And that's consistent. The feedback that we get from both students as they come back from their summer internship and as they go out into their full-time jobs, that they really feel well positioned to do that and kind of seize the moment.
Right. As you look at it, healthcare, supply chain, technology across industries, and perhaps AI and its influence, is it that AI is something that's transversal and that you're going to look to sort of integrate and think about how a candidate can then leverage and use that to their advantage in whichever industry they're interested in?
Is that back to me?
No, that was to Ed, sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think it is. I think it does transcend different industries, and similar to what Heather mentioned before, it's just another tool. I'm not completely convinced that the computer is really going anywhere. Maybe that's a technology we're not really going to invest in, but I guess it did well. I think AI is very specific because it helps in three different ways. There's some obvious automations that it can help people with in terms of taking some things off their plate so they can focus their brain on some more important tasks. There's the anticipatory advantage where based on existing data, it can help you make decisions quicker. And so a faster decision sometimes is better than a slower decision. And there's the synthesis piece where if you believe, and this is true, that there's an infinite source of data out there, it does a really good job of helping you synthesize unlimited data into, call it, more discrete insights. So like those things all sound super attractive. Like I don't, if we talked about this 10 years ago, people would like all of them. The part where we're in right now is figuring out how to do it. So the area where MBAs are being leaned on, whether it's in healthcare, finance, whatever, is they are the ones that are being looked at to help test and learn how we can use this AI thing. And there will be some painful lessons that people learn. And at some point, we're going to go through a short-term period in the next year or so where we're starting to think, well, AI really wasn't all that. And well, actually, we're still learning. But I think that's going to be true across industries, regardless of what we're looking at. Obvious applications in things called health, in something called healthcare, where there's a whole bunch of data to be thought through. But I think it's really transversal in terms of lots of different industries.
Right. Abigail, you know that my feelings about the Career Management Center, I see it as this magic box at the heart of the MBA experience, and that actually not enough exposure. So it's always wonderful to bring professionals like yourselves together to share. How do you stay on top of this? Because the markets move so quickly; it's continually evolving. Are you in a constant dialogue with employers and, of course, students to reflect these changing trends?
So absolutely, our employer partnership team talks to employers every single day, and we have we send newsletters out, but we also have a lot of one-on-one conversations all the time. We have a team of people at Yale who are doing that. We're also talking to faculty, we're talking to students, we're really listening to see what's going on and where the needs are. But even seeing where the needs are, we need to be ahead of where those needs are. And so a lot of it is really looking at where are the opportunities. The good thing is I don't see our office, we shouldn't be handing out jobs. I mean, in some ways I wish we could do that, but really we're teaching our students how to fish and how to actually ask the questions, and working with our students and coaching them one-on-one, based on their interests. Okay, so what trends are you seeing? Here are all the different tools you can, use to learn about them. Here are different sources of alumni or people or things around Yale that you can use to learn more. Here are different employers you could be speaking with. And we really want to empower our students to be the drivers of that acquisition of knowledge, because there is no way, given that we have 1,000 students across programs any given year, that we could keep up with every single interest of every single student, nor, quite frankly, would that be that great a use of our time. But we can teach people, how do you explore? How do you ask the right questions? How do you know, is a resource one that I should trust or not? Or should I get other, validation? Should I go in this direction? And I think that really giving students that the constant feedback and working with them to see, are they on track, and asking the right questions and finding the right information and interpreting it in a way that's going to forward their career is much more valuable than us ever thinking that we could actually have all of the answers. We have a lot of the openings, and I see our office, and really the career development office at Yale, we're all about openings and connections, and then teaching students what to do with them.
Okay, so teaching students how to fish, Heather, if we look at it within an MBA journey, that might consider the internship between year 1 and year 2, that first position coming out of school. But these are all stepping stones, right? Because you're equally thinking about 5 years, 10, we talked about 2037. So how do you start to prepare them, not just for the internship, but just this long journey that they're going to be exploring?
Yeah, so I think when we start to prepare them, we're helping them think about what are those transferable skills? What are they bringing to the table when they first come in? Because I think that helps them build a foundation, not only of confidence, but it helps them understand what they're already bringing to the table, where their inherent talents and strengths that they can continue to develop and grow while they're here. And then we also look at some of those core skills that we know employers are looking for, and some of those things that we know will always be relevant. So the leadership skills, working in teams, working across different, and working up and down an organization is one of the things we know that Ross students are known very well for, and having that sense of humility that I know we've already talked about, and having that opportunity to work in an ambiguous space, which is one thing that we do a lot here at Ross, especially with our multidisciplinary action projects that we have. MAP is kind of our hallmark, action-based learning. And I know a lot of our programs have something like this, but anytime you're thrown into one of those situations, you're really given that opportunity to use that opportunity to your muscle memory of figuring things out. And that helps you leverage those skills you kind of already came in with, and then helps you figure out how to articulate them in a way that's going to help you during that internship application process and beyond. So leadership skills is a big one. Managing ambiguity is another one. The analytical skills, I think you also get that in a lot of the classroom experience and on your internship. So we look at some of those core things we know employers are looking for, and how to leverage experiences in the MBA program to enhance those.
Right. Michelle, with many candidates coming in perhaps with a functional role that they had prior to business school, or sort of a technical skill set that they might have. When we talk about that leadership journey, sometimes that might be more apparent when they're 10 years out and they say, wow, yeah, now I'm managing big teams. But you're a catalyst for this. How do you help them to start that leadership journey?
One thing that we do, and one of my favorite workshops to deliver, is called Designing Your Life. And it's kind of looking out, not just for the next year or two, but looking out 5+ years. And that's really helpful for a lot of our students to think about the skills that they have now, what they're looking to do if they're incoming, what they're looking to do in that summer internship, the first job out of Darden, but increasingly also, what are they looking to do longer term? Because as many, I'm sure many of our students across the panel today, they're making a career pivot. So what they were doing is not what they want to do right now. They're looking to make a change, but they've got tremendous experience, either industry experience, as you mentioned. We have many military veterans, so they have strong leadership experience, and they're really looking to use that going forward, not just for the job right out of Darden, but what they're doing longer term. So we spend a lot of time really focused on those leadership skills in addition to finance and accounting and marketing, so that they're really ready to take advantage, leading those big teams down the road.
Right. I wish that we had met 30 years ago. It would have been so incredibly helpful designing my life. Ed, we talk about that position coming out of school, and often the media focus on that first position, or perhaps 3 years out, and they always throw the sort of the ROI metric. When you think about ROI, and you get to watch these journeys over a much longer time frame, 10 years, 15 years out, what do you like to include as you assess ROI? Are there sort of intangibles that go well beyond salaries and job titles?
Yeah, so I mean, if we zoom out on the ROI piece, there are certain career paths and titles that require an MBA, right? So they require this piece of paper called an MBA to be eligible for those titles. And this is more of a backward-looking statement than a forward, but there's a set that loosely requires that. That's starting to go away a little bit. But on top of getting your MBA as your golden ticket to those specific career paths, you start to really zoom in on the things that you are paying for in addition to that golden ticket. It's a unique lab where you are exposed to new ideas, where you're perhaps challenged in the classroom, like at the Darden cases, where you're learning how to do real-time conflict management. And this may perhaps ladder up to your ability to lead teams, to be working with different people. So when I'm looking down the road, after my first job, and I said, hey, this MBA from this amazing business school unlocked this path, I'm thankful for that. But I'm truly stronger as a contributor and as a leader and as a worker at my new employer because of these other things. And like we can debate the tangible versus intangible, but being a stronger leader, a stronger communicator, being able to solve really difficult problems in a complex, changing world where everybody's angry at each other for whatever reason, that's stuff that you can't buy. As it turns out, you can buy, which is what MBAs are kind of for, right? But my whole point is you have 2 unique years to learn in this lab, potentially safe environment, and develop those muscles going out. So yes, golden tickets to some additional specific job paths that require it, but bigger than that, skills that you can hang on to for the rest of your life.
Right. At Yale, Abigail, you talk about business and society, the convergence of those two. You can be successful in business and have a positive impact on society. Is that something that you're really looking to help to shape with is it something that they're expressing, that a sense of purpose perhaps with their career?
Absolutely. It is a theme that is true through almost every conversation we have at SOM, whether that's conversations among staff, among faculty, and among students. The students who come into our office, whether they want to work for a nonprofit or work for an investment bank or a consulting firm or technology company or a government agency, they all care about how they're what the impact they're making is. And I think that has a huge, it's a huge driver of everything that they're doing also in terms of how they're really taking the skills that they're learning in the classroom. How do they, we have a center that's actually relatively new at the program, a program for social enterprise and innovation. And it's looking at for-profit institutions as well as not-for-profit and government. And how do you actually drive difference in the world and impact? And I think our students bring that, they ask everything. Sometimes our students refer to it as the end society piece. And they want to bring that conversation into every single classroom conversation, every coaching conversation. How is this job, how can I really whether it's really changing the environment for the employees who work there or for whatever the impact of the business is that they're making, they all look at really how are they contributing more than just the job that needs to get done. And I think that alone really drives so much of the decision making. It also makes them look at it not just as what's my first job, but looking at that first job as what am I going to learn? And am I going to keep building and learning more there, or am I going to learn something that I'm also then going to be taking to make an impact, out in the world beyond that? And I think they're always asking, how do I learn and how does that make an impact?
So Heather, between designing your life, having that sort of impact, I mean, it would be great if we could click our fingers and have impact, but sometimes it requires patience. That first job after business school is leading to those future. So again, are you looking at timeframes with students and saying, okay, strategically, what you'll then consolidate out of business school with this first role that is going to open up these opportunities, not teaching them patience, but to look at that longer term picture?
Yeah, I think that's such a good point, because there's such an emphasis when you are applying to school and when you first get here for that first job right out of school, because people are giving up a lot to come here. It's expensive. There's an opportunity cost of coming out of the workplace for 2 years if you're doing a full-time residential program. And so, I understand the pressure that there is for that first job, but we all know most people spend maybe 18 months in that first role on average. So it is so important. I know at orientation, when I talk to students, I tell them that, and you can see their shoulders kind of drop, like, oh my gosh. Yeah, so I need to think beyond that. It's okay if I don't get my dream job, first role right out of school. And I think when you're thinking about, I mean, if we look at all of us, did we ever think we would be exactly in this place 20 years ago? Probably not. So I think I used to be a professional dancer. So, I mean, I think you have to think about that right balance of, what are your hopes, dreams, desires, along with capitalizing on opportunity when it presents it to yourself. And that's that kind of level of readiness we were talking about before, is knowing yourself, knowing what you're good at, articulating those skills, and then being ready for opportunities. And this is what I tell students all the time. Look, the best thing you can do is work hard and be good at what you do and be a good person. Be someone who has good social capital, be someone who is easy to work with, be great at your job, and be known for that, because those are the people that other people want to help you. If they can count on you, if you can be reliable, those are the people that will go far in life. And it sounds so easy. And so I think when you talk about it like that, people are like, oh, okay, I can do that. So getting that first job is certainly kind of the prize when you're here, but having that long-term view is something that we obviously want students to be thinking about. But that balance of readiness, being ready, being when someone approaches you for another opportunity, and being able to kind of adjust in the moment, about your long-term plan, it's a balance that is important to find. And that's when knowing your own values is really important. So yeah, there's a lot wrapped up in there. It's a complex question, Matt.
Well, Michelle, I think Heather's just given us a wonderful case to work with. An incoming student, professional dancer, endlessly talented, really interested in ed tech, and hoping to use the MBA to pivot perhaps towards product manager role in that industry. Where do you start? I mean, concretely, as you think about an individual's backgrounds, their accomplishments and experience, and then those future goals, how do you and your team start to work with that individual?
Sure, because that's such an easy one. Thanks, Heather.
Okay.
I think it's understanding where you are now. So in Heather's case, professional dancer wants to go into ed tech. So what I would be looking for is what about ed tech attracts you? What makes you curious? What do you want to learn? How can we think about, particularly over the summer between your first and second year, what kind of roles could you pursue that would give you some skills to best position you for that upon graduation from Darden? certainly to kind of explore in the education space, kind of make it become real and try things. I think we talked a lot about curiosity, but the other important thing is not only being curious, but also kind of test it out. What do you want to learn? Who could you reach out to and kind of better understand that space that you're interested in? Is there a project that you could work on? Just anything that will help you kind of refine that and really kind of sit in that, so that as you are now pursuing that ed tech role, how can you talk about it very realistically and practically? This is what I've learned. This is from what I see, the kind of skills I have, and talk to alums, talk to people in that space and kind of learn from them. It's really, because this is the long-term goal, it's really about building relationships, not being afraid to ask questions, and then just kind of iterate until you have the skills, you have the understanding to move into the space you're looking to go to.
Right. Now you've opened up a theme here, Heather. I'm going to stay with it with my question to Ed. Another classmate comes to see you. You're mindful of the diversity in his or her MBA classroom. You know, heck, there's a professional dancer among your classmates. How in bringing all of this diverse talent together, are you then helping them to use, you know, shared diverse industry experience, you know, the paths each have taken, and how this is going to serve them to work in future teams, perhaps to lead future teams? Are you really drawing on the diversity that's in that classroom?
100%. And then when I talk to my admissions colleagues and I thank them every day for the amazing diverse classes that they put in front of me, it positions our program to give them the diverse experiences within the program to understand what has made them amazing so far, so we can then figure out how they're going to continue to be amazing in the future. So to riff on our same example of a hypothetical professional dancer that wants to do something different, the reality is the students that we work with are ridiculously amazing in their own way, right? So in some sense, when the question is given to us on how do you take someone who has been crushing it in life so far and help them crush it later, like, well, they've been doing it their whole lives so far. So I am extremely confident that they're going to continue to be able to do that. But diversity is something that means a lot to different places, and certainly at Fuqua, when we're trying to bring in people from all walks of life, different parts of the world, all ages and stages. I mean, we try to be very reflective of what the planet looks like, so we can help students understand when they are going to be successful tomorrow, they're going to have to draw on their diverse experiences to do that. The part about what about their very niche background is going to qualify them or help them be successful, get that really difficult role, I'd argue that's the easy part. But once we get them thinking about how they've been able to dominate these 4 core skills of getting stuff done, working well with others, solving complex problems, and honestly just learning how to lead, those are the 4 components that are going to make them successful regardless of what they do. And it's up to them to figure out what function or industry that they want to flex those muscles in. But oh man, I mean, when you think about how diversity has led to successful teams and time and time again, how the science shows that a diverse team is always going to outperform a homogeneous team, it only leads you to one answer. And it's how can I figure out how to harness these amazing diverse backgrounds that we have to continue and innovate and do amazing things. And that's literally what business has been trying to do for many, many years. I would say in the past 10 years, it's been more of a public conversation, but that's, I mean, the secret's out. I mean, that's the secret, is these businesses being so successful as they keep on, facing difficult problems.
Right. In holding up a mirror, Abigail, employers that say we're looking for socially responsible business leaders, and joining them on that path together. Now, that's not a sort of a plug-in course that you offer on a Friday afternoon to be a socially responsible business leader. Perhaps there's already that sense of their moral compass, but how do you help them to then express their values, the things that matter to them and that will translate into that social responsibility?
I think a lot of it is asking the students what they care about. really getting them to connect with what matters to them and what that means to them. It's going to mean something different to most, from one person to the next. And I think some of it is really, there's so much dialogue and discussion and discourse, and so something that is really encouraged in the classrooms and in case conversations and across the university, really, which I think really leads to that, because then students they know how to really ask the questions of their potential employers about what's important and where is the impact to be made. It's very rare that it's all just sitting there, oh, if you take this job, this is the impact that's the biggest possible. It's really for a student or, a new employee to bring that to it, to see, what problems could I solve that they don't even know are there? How could I actually both build this business and also make a bigger social impact with it? And so I think a lot of it is that creativity and asking a lot of questions and building the relationships to really understand what are not only the problems that they're facing, but how can they leverage them for other causes. And I think so much of that, to go back to the dancing example, students come from all sorts of backgrounds, and that is often why they see things through different lenses, because they're bringing different experiences and different ways of learning and different ways of leading and different ways of relating to people and different ways, quite frankly, of getting knocked down, and well, literally or figuratively, and really needing to bounce back again and not needing to figure out, all right, what's the way forward? And all of those diverse experiences lead them also to look at all the different impacts that different kinds of organizations can make that might be right in front of those employers, and they might just not even notice them yet. But they're always receptive and excited when they hear the enthusiasm and excitement that our students bring to them for that.
All four of you remind me why these careers panels at Centre Court are so wildly popular. This is a phenomenal conversation. Thank you, Heather, there for providing an idea that everybody then ran with. In an earlier session today, we discussed the difference between a community, and I think of your 4 schools, and immediately I think of collaboration, really strong, tight-knit communities. The difference between a community and a network. Heather, when you think about someone building their network, clearly business school plays a role, but being a part of a community, are those 2 distinct things?
Yeah, I think of a network is something that people have access to, and a community is something that people contribute to. So I think community is something where people give and share, and you connect with people for like a shared purpose. A network is kind of the infrastructure, but the community is what happens when that infrastructure comes together to, leverage is probably not the best word, but I think you understand what I mean when I say that. But the community is the product of that network. And so the community has a different feel to it depending on that network. So each network can have a different sense of community to it, right? Like, so your network of friends feels different than maybe your professional network, but those are 2 different communities that have a very different feel to them. So I think that's
and do Ross students have both? Because there are those structures, those frameworks, those networks, but they're part of this powerful community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that when you come to an MBA, you have access to the network, but the community, when you come here, that shared experience is so unique. The diverse group of people that you meet with, that you have team groups that you're a part of, that your clubs you're a part of, the recruiting experience you're a part of, the classroom experience, a Michigan football, basketball. I mean, that's a huge part of our community here too. But then the huge network. I mean, one of the largest living alumni, the University of Michigan, and voted one of the most helpful. That has a huge impact when it comes to recruiting, and that is part of the community. So it's a huge advantage.
And so, Michelle, irrespective of job market in 2027, whether it's strong or whether it's struggling, that's presumably where a community makes a difference. And belonging to Darden or any 4 of your schools, do alumni then sort of lean in and say, hey, it's a tougher market this year, how can we help?
I would certainly expect that they will, because community for Darden is so important. We're in a relatively small geography, and 95% of our students live within 5 minutes of our classroom. So the community here is really all encompassing. As I think about it, community, almost like concentric circles going out, alumni being the next one around the Darden students right here. We do lean on them heavily because they know that experience from having been here at Darden, and that really carries forward. I'm always surprised surprised probably not the right word. I'm always impressed with how responsive Darden alums are to meet with students, to join alumni panels. They just really want to give back. And so yes, that's the Darden network, but it really comes from that essence of community that is so important to the Darden experience.
Right. And Ed, Heather talked about giving to a community. You know, there's an inherent generosity when Bill Boulder, your dean, sits down with Tim Cook on the stage. Obviously, that's great. But I imagine that with the alumni, they give, as Michelle was describing, but also continue to have a connection with the careers team as they're taking the next steps in their career. So it's giving in both directions.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd argue that I clearly haven't worked at these other amazing schools before, but I get the sense that we have very self-selecting communities. You have students that have understood what this community stands for, and that's what they're buying into when they decide to go all in with their admissions deposit. But it's almost like you come for the network, you stay for the community. And so I guess an anecdote of how we, share back and forth, it's not uncommon for us to stay engaged with our alumni and what are next transitions throughout their career, whether it's by their choice, they want to do something different, or they've been impacted by layoffs or whatever the case may be. I had a conversation with an alum, this was probably 3 weeks ago, and this particular person was impacted by some layoffs and was trying to figure out what was going to be next in the short term for his particular career. We talked about it for about 10 minutes, at which point he stopped me and said, "Ed, we've been talking about me for way too long. What can I do to help current students?" And I was like, I got emotional. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what we should be talking about you right now, right? The students are going to be fine. But it's almost like that hard-coded. They are part of the community. They have a responsibility to help, to give back, to contribute. That's just how the students are wired. And that's a beautiful thing to work with. And that's not something that, you can just buy, right? So when I have these years upon years of students who become alumni, who do amazing things, who keep on giving back. I mean, look, that's why I stay. And that's why I do some of the things I do at work. And it makes it really easy for me to work with a lot of these students and alumni every day.
Right. Presumably, even among the students, Abigail, the same virtuous circle, one of them is preparing a case for a McKinsey interview. Will other students then support, I used to work there, let me help you. Do you see a lot of that?
Tons, absolutely tons. Our professional clubs are so active, and SOM has a very much a all-inclusive club mentality. So there's no students there. We don't have people pay to join clubs. It's funded very differently through the school. And so students really throw themselves in, even if they're going into a different field, to support other students and to really work with each other. So whether they are doing it because helping other students because that's what they did for their summer, or because it's what they did before SOM and they're doing something totally different, they get involved in many of the professional clubs, really to give back and share not just their knowledge, but help students prepare, also open up doors to their prior professional networks. It's really, and communities as well. Really, it's really that idea of, I think it goes down to, it's two things. It's one is that idea of giving and that idea of really, but it's also that Ed used the word responsibility. And I feel like it's really that caring and responsibility. So not just that they have, that responsibility to do it, but they really care and want each other to succeed, whether they have met these other students before this or not. And it's a great way that they also form connections and get to know each other in different ways also.
Yeah. So a final thought, we make decisions with our hearts and with our heads. For all of you, and Heather, if I can start with you, candidates, thinking about their next steps, finding the right program, the right environment where they're going to thrive and flourish. One piece of advice that you would give any candidate, to help them find that fit, what would it be?
Yeah, I always say go where you feel most like home. You know, at some point you have to throw away the spreadsheet, because where you feel like home and feel more like yourself is where you're going to really show up and take advantage of everything around you. And when you do that, then that's where you excel. And that's where you're going to find that you have the most opportunities provided to you, because you're leaning in and taking advantage of everything. So go where you ultimately feel most like home, and throw the spreadsheet out for just that couple of minutes that takes you to get in touch with your gut.
So Michelle, spreadsheet has gone. Again, your advice to any candidate that's taking this next step for them to consider.
Echo everything Heather said. Plus, if you can, go visit, actually be there, meet with the students, meet with faculty, see what the environment is like, and then see, can you envision yourself really enjoying this over the next 2 years? Because that's what we want for you, is that you're really embracing the entire community, the entire experience at Darden or any of our schools.
Right. And I'm sure Ed, agreeing and adding to that, if I can bring in one additional angle, reaching out to alums, being respectful. These are busy, engaged individuals, but they're very loyal to their school and will take the time. So how perhaps a candidate could get the most out of that respectful exchange?
Yeah, I mean, the recovering engineer has to put out that I do not want to throw the spreadsheet away. I put a lot of work into it, and it's a strong spreadsheet. But as candidates are reaching out to alumni and being respectful, everyone is always respectful of each other's time, but it's important to learn from an alumni's perspective, like what has kept them engaged with the school. That for me is going to either resonate or not resonate with the prospective student, and that could be a good, fruitful conversation to help them figure out if this is the community that they want to join. The MBA is a contact sport. It was never meant to be a one-player game, so it's important that prospective students engage with different people, whether it's current students or alumni, to make sure this is a community where they feel welcome.
And Abigail, a final thought, and if I may frame it, a candidate that says, yeah, but I'm not sure this is the right time. Is there ever a right time to go to business school?
I would say two answers that contradict each other. It is always the right time, and it is never the right time. It's always hard to take sort of that step back from your professional path and go back to school. For most people, it's going back to school and be in an academic environment, no matter how connected to real world life and projects it is. That's hard. It's hard to give up a lot. And it's also, I'd say, always the best time, because if it crosses your mind, there's a reason. And if you're thinking about what's next, and this is something that can get you propelling forward. One of the things, so I tend to not use the word pivot. There are people on my team who do, I don't, and we have lots of debates about it. And the reason is exactly tied to what this question is asking. I see everything as a progression, and an MBA is an opportunity to really accelerate through that progression. It might take you in different directions. It might take you in the same direction, but it's really that, are you ready to really jumpstart everything and accelerate everything, whether it's your sense of impact, your sense of community, your sense of network, really leveraging your sense of leadership, your really understanding of what leadership is, the skills, and then all the technical skills that you learn, and put it all together. Are you really ready for that? Is anybody, I mean, business school is, I'm a business school graduate from years ago. It is one of the best and craziest experiences you will ever have, because there's so much going on and competing. And I think if we ever actually thought it through and knew what it was going to be like, most people would be like, wait, what? And that's part of what makes it so valuable, that it pushes you in ways that you didn't realize you could be really get a lot out of and value from being pushed. And I think, so is the right time now? If you're thinking about it, I would argue yes, because it will always be, there'll always be later. And the sooner you have an MBA, the more you can leverage it, because I think the most valuable thing about it is not that first job after, or even that 10 years after. It's the flexibility that you can be, sort of navigating things throughout your career in ways that you don't have that flexibility without an MBA. I think the most useful and valuable return that it gives is that flexibility and that fluidity throughout your career. And why not start with that earlier?
Right. Well, this panel was the right time and it was the best time. I can't gone by so fast. You all talk about your alums at Ross, at Darden, at Yale, and at Duke. They're incredible ambassadors for their school. So are you, all four of you. Wonderful session. Thank you for sharing so much authentic energy and enthusiasm for the extraordinary experience that anyone will have in your MBA program. So Michelle, Abigail, Heather and Ed, thank you. I sincerely hope that a professional dancer was watching this particular session, because with these schools, you can go anywhere. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Matt.